What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla stock as we're getting more negative news. Not to mention why tomorrow is going to be an absolutely insane day as we have the economic projections report coming out. And we have Jerome Powell, the big guy, giving a speech which will cause the market to shake because we have the FOMC meeting. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. Deposits $2,000, you're guaranteed 30, and the offer ends at the end of March. Anyways, as far as Tesla stock is going, as you guys can tell, we're making lower highs here, which is not a very good sign. And we lost structure right here at the supports. This is a bad sign that Tesla's showing some weakness. Now, what could happen is if we do see some kind of rebound tomorrow morning, can we see a little retest of the low 230s? It's always very possible. Then we'll see if we get a rejection, continue to fall back down to these lows. It's very possible that could be happening, but there's no guarantees until we hear what Jerome Powell has to say. So the question is, why is Tesla dipping like this? What news is coming out? We have 3 big catalysts coming out for tomorrow, which I'll talk about, and then I'll break down these charts. Will Tesla dip more? Will it see a big bounce? I'll give you guys more insights about that. So the first bad piece of news is the fact that many Tesla board members are selling off over $100 million worth of Tesla stock in recent weeks. We have 3 of the main board members that did that. We have like James Murdoch, who sold $13 million worth of them. We also had Kimball Musk selling about $27 million worth of them last month. Then we have Robin Denholm, who offloaded more than $75 million worth of shares. In total, it's over $100 million worth of shares that's being sold by the board members. Why are they doing this? Well, honestly, guys, it does not necessarily mean that they are, against Tesla. It could just mean that they are in a very, very interesting place where they think we're at a very, very fair value for the price. It could be because of personal reasons for option expirations. It could be because of that, because they're exercising options. A bunch of different reasons could be why they're doing this. So please keep in mind, it's very important to know. They could also foresee more potential downside for Tesla. If they think it's going to dip more, they could be trying to sell at these high levels and start buying more as it dips. That could be another reason why. They could be doing this because their sales are declining, and if there is more downside to come, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to buy back in. So we'll see. But I just want to note that that's what's going on. This is bad news so far. Additionally, RBC Capital lowered their Tesla price targets to about $320, from $440 before. And they're saying this because of the decline in their sales for January and February in Europe and China especially. They also mentioned that their self-driving pricing is going to likely go down, and they aren't really too happy about that. But despite that, they're still very bullish for the long term. So keep that in mind. So they lowered their price targets at 320. It's no surprise that as Tesla starts dipping, we see a lot of analysts lowering their price targets. When Tesla starts running, we see them increase them. So it's kind of like very, very interesting. But with that being said, that's what's going on, at least thus far, for Tesla. So as far as Tesla goes, we have some buy ratings from different analysts. Even Mizuho gave them an outperform rating, but they also cut their price target, which is part of why the share price went down yesterday. The price price ratio is dipping again. That's a sign of weakness for the chart. And then Tuesdays and Wednesdays tend to be interesting. Wednesdays are green only about 48% of the time historically, 48% of the time historically. We tend to see more volatility around noon and also during the second to last hour of the day. And besides that, there's nothing too crazy on the news. It's kind of like the same stuff coming out. So why on earth is tomorrow going to be a big day? You have to remember that Tesla's a company that is they do depend a lot on their sales. Okay. I know people are thinking about the robo-taxi, AI, and this and that. We're not there yet, right? That's something for the longer term. We do have an unsupervised robo-taxi FSD launch that's going to be coming out in June, but we're not necessarily in a position where Tesla is making a ton of money off of that yet. We're not 100% ready yet. It may take a while to get there. And then they're just launching it. So it's just a start. Of course, there's going to be issues for them to have to get through. But my point is that for now, they still depend on their sales. That's the main thing to watch for. There are reports saying that the Model Y refresh sales may not be as strong as expected because of slowing demand that could be coming out. So that's like a little bit more negative. So there's all this bad news. It's causing the share price to dip. I see this as a long-term buying opportunity. But for the time being, one of the reasons why Tesla's dipping is because of a sales decline, and their sales are very much influenced by interest rates, right? Interest rates affect, what investors could get. So does politics and things like that. If we start to see interest rates going down, this could really help the overall economy. This could help consumers. This could help Tesla sales as well. And we're not really in a position that's there yet, right? It's going to take a while to get there. But that's the reason why it's very important to pay attention to FOMC and what's going on. So let's talk about the three big catalysts for tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be Wednesday, March 19th. As we open, we have some crude oil data coming out, which is quite minor, might not cause much of a move. The market may dip a little bit more than consolidate to start things off. And then we have three catalysts. Number one, we have the Fed interest rate decision coming out. We're expecting a 100% chance they keep rates the same, so they're not going to make much of a change. That's what we think is very probable. Then we have the FOMC economic projections report also coming out. That's the second big factor. This will give us more insights on what the Fed is planning for the next couple of years. What would interest rates likely be looking like in 1 year from now and 2 years? If they expect more cuts than expected, this could be bullish for the markets. That's very unlikely, though, with these tariffs coming out. If they expect less cuts and we expect these numbers to essentially go up, that's going to be bearish. It could cause the market to dip because the Fed's going to cut less. And if everything's the same, which I think is very probable, it might cause a nuanced reaction where the market doesn't really move as much. Might still see a lot of sideways price action. So these are the two big catalysts to start things off. The third and final catalyst for tomorrow is at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time because we have the press conference. That's when we have the big guy Jerome Powell giving a speech. Now, keep in mind that President Trump is very important in this because Donald Trump has doubled down on his reciprocal tariffs as of the last couple of days. He called April 2nd the liberating day for America, for our country. He mentioned, so President Trump is saying that, and these are his quotes, we're getting back to some of the wealth that very, very foolish presidents gave away because they had no clue what they were doing. Then he mentioned that it's a liberation day for our country because we're going to be getting back a lot of the wealth that we foolishly gave up to other countries, including friend and foe, he said. He also says he wants to double down on reciprocal tariffs and that he's once again not going to back down. Reporters asked him, was there any inclination to ease up on tariffs amidst the anxiety in the markets? Donald Trump said no. So Donald Trump is very, very strict about tariffs. He wants to double down on them, and he is still very, very confident about that. Jerome Powell has said that there's been a lot of uncertainty about this, and that's the reason why he's going to likely mention that, which is not the best for the markets. There's going to be some good and some bad that comes from it. Let me explain. So, what's good for the markets is when he gives his speech, and this is what he's going to do. He's going to give his speech, the same speech he always gives. He's going to say that the labor market is doing well, despite the fact that inflation is elevated. They're making progress. They're still, once again, keeping in mind their 2% mandate, and that there may be uncertainty, but the Fed has to do what's necessary. He may mention that the Fed is in no rush to cut because they have to wait and see what's going to happen. And then he's going to be talking about interest rates. For now, the Fed is going to hold. He's going to talk more about why they're doing that. Then he's going to be answering a lot of questions about tariffs and such. Jerome Powell mentioned that the tariffs alone are not what's affecting the Fed's policies, but the effect they have on the economy. You have to remember that. If Donald Trump's tariffs do not cause much of a change to inflation, then yeah, it's going to be decent for the Fed and the markets. But if there's another increase in inflation because of the fact that President Trump wants to increase more tariffs, that could be a little bit more negative and make things a bit more complicated for them. So keep in mind the tariffs are just barely starting to go up right now. And then we have more coming out on April 2nd with the reciprocal tariffs coming into place. So this is going to go on for many months. It's not like we're just going to see the tariffs in and then the reaction is just instant. It could take many months to really see the effect it has on inflation. That's why Jerome Powell has to be very, very cautious. He also mentioned the Fed has to be careful to not raise rates too much or cut rates too fast. They have to be in the middle and get everything right. Otherwise, it could be very, very detrimental. So that's what Jerome Powell has been talking about. I believe that his speech might be so-so for the markets, but the Q&A section could cause anything. Will he cause a lot of upside or downside? He's going to be very uncertain, in my opinion. I'm a little bit concerned that the market's a little bit nervous, especially because of the risks right now. You have to keep in mind that there's going to be risks of potential stagflation, and that this may leave very, very little leeway for Jerome Powell to ensure investors tomorrow. So we'll see. Honestly, guys, anything could happen. And in my personal opinion, I think there's a very, very good chance that the market starts off with a small dip and consolidates, and then we react in either direction. We're starting to look a little bit more bearish, but it all depends on what the guy says. So you never know. So please be open-minded just to be safe. We'll see if he gives us some kind of bounce or not. On top of this, we also happen to have this news right here. So we're expecting the Fed to keep rates the same tomorrow. When the news comes out, we'll see what the reaction is. And then involving President Trump, just keep in mind he hasn't said too much new stuff about tariffs. He keeps on saying April 2nd is going to be the big date, so we just have to wait about 2 weeks from now. However, besides that, his focus has been on the Russia-Ukraine ceasefire deal. He spoke with Putin today, and he said they had a very, very good conversation. They made a lot of progress in this and that. They talked, negotiated. Keep in mind that Russia has a lot of demands from Ukraine when it comes to like land, when it comes to their military and things like that. There's a lot of demands that Russia's making, so we'll see how that goes. My view is this, guys. Okay, I just want peace, and all this talk, all this negotiation. Yes, it's a move in the right direction. Sure, it is, but that's not everything. What matters more is can we see action. Action matters more than talking and words. So, can we get some kind of ceasefire deal? That's what matters most, right? I'm trying to be unbiased when I say that. If we get the deal, it could cause a big move in the stock market. That's why I constantly talk about this. The market's very much affected by this administration. That's why I'm forced to talk about this. So please keep that in mind. A couple more things. We have some earnings coming out. Tomorrow it's all going to be very, very minor. But then on Thursday, we have like FedEx, Nike, and a few more, not to mention NEO. And then the fear and greed index is currently at extreme fear. That's making up the majority of sentiments. Momentum is at extreme fear. And we're also seeing the put to call option ratio at extreme fear as it's going up. It's elevated. The VIX is rejecting, kind of dipping a little bit, but we'll see if it rejects or not again. So be very, very careful. Could go either way. Anyways, enough about the news. Let's talk about this and make this very simple. So, with Tesla, it's trying to bounce a little bit during the pre-market session. This might outperform the market a little bit and try to go a little higher to start things off. But then we're going to be watching to see once the decision comes out, the Fed is going to announce they're going to keep rates the same, most likely, yes. But then they're going to give us the economic projections. I don't know if that's going to cause the market to dump. Will Tesla dump back down to 220? Or does Tesla start to see a big push back up to about 239? It could go either way. And then after that, it's all on Jerome Powell. Does he launch us higher? Does he cause a big rug pull? It all depends on what the big guy ends up saying. Okay, if Tesla cannot hold 230, it's going to likely eventually reject back down to 215. If we get back above 241, there is hope for us to get back up to 250. Watch those levels very, very closely. It's a matter of can we reclaim to 230 or not. If we reject off that, it's going to be a bad sign. And can we get back above 238 to balance? We'll have to see just to be safe. I do anticipate a small push in the morning, but then we could be looking for a rejection move as we get closer to FOMC. So please be ready, guys, and we'll see how things end up going for us. It all depends on this data, which can't be 100% predicted. I wish I was Nostradamus or some kind of fortune teller to tell you what the market's going to do, but no one truly knows, guys. So please just make sure you know your levels and you're very careful nonetheless. With that being said, what do I see for SPY? Well, honestly, guys, it depends. There's two setups. There's a possible inverse head and shoulders. This is the bullish case. If we get our economic projections that does not cause a rug pull, if Jerome Powell launches the markets, we're going to be looking for a bounce. My prediction is we might see a little bit of a dip and some consolidation in the morning. So we could be retesting 558 or so, a small dip. But if we lose 555 and we start failing, I do think we might be retesting this low, and it's going to be a very bad sign. If 555 fails us, Jerome Powell could be causing a rug pull and we could be dumping all the way down to the 540s again. Okay. If not, if Jerome Powell causes a big bounce, there's the hope that the inverse head and shoulders pans out. If we get back above 570, I think we easily push for 575, then eventually very close to 580. So break past 570. If Jerome Powell causes that tomorrow, look for a bounce and a pump. If we end up dumping and we lose 555, it's going to be a bad sign. My prediction is we see a small dip towards 558 or so when we consolidate. Then we'll see if we bounce or reject, so just keep that in mind. For the QQQ, it's the same thing essentially. We might dip a little bit. We have a gap to fill down here, so I do anticipate a little bit more downside. However, it depends on if we could hold these lows. If we dip here to like 470, kind of consolidate a bit, do the decisions coming out cause a bounce? Does Jerome Powell's speech cause a big bounce for this to be in a double bottom or even like a slanted inverse head and shoulders? I know it's a little bit hard to see. This could be like a slanted inverse head and shoulders to cause a big bounce back up to the 490s. Or if we don't hold 470, if we lose 470, I do expect this to dump towards new lows. So there's going to be a big dump coming if we lose this gap support near 470 right here. If that fails us, I do expect us to come back down. So for example, if we dip to fill the gap and consolidate, if we can't hold 470, expect us to dip below these lows. And we could be looking for like the 460 area to be tested. So lose 470 is going to be a bad sign. break back above 480, and we're going to be looking for a bounce off the inverse hand shoulders that slant or even like a double bottom. So it depends, guys. It all depends on FOMC. Make sure you watch your levels just to be safe. When it comes to the Russell 2000, we're looking to see how it reacts to about this 200 area. Break 205. If 205 breaks like this, we're looking for this inverse hand shoulders here. We have this left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder potentially forming. If 205 breaks and Jerome Powell launches us, we're looking for 210. If it's the opposite, and if we end up losing support right here at 202, we could be dipping back down to about 200. If that fails us, we could be dumping back down towards 198. So could this be a head and shoulders and a rejection, or do we see an inverse head and shoulders and a big bounce? It could go either way depending on how things end up going. So watch and see how things end up going from this point on. I'm in the middle. Could go either way, so we'll just have to see what Jerome Powell has to say. So give this some time. We want to be very unbiased traders. For ES, it's very simple. Is this an inverse head and shoulders? If so, you want to see this essentially hold 5,600. If that holds and we get back above 5,700 tomorrow, if Jerome Powell launches us like this, I expect this to bounce for the 5,800s with this left shoulder, head, and right shoulder. However, if we see the opposites, if Jerome Powell causes a bigger rug pull and we don't end up holding 5,600, we're going to be at risk of returning to not just these lows, but new lows towards the 5480s, just like that, which is where this lower trend line happens to be. So it all depends on how well we hold support. I do anticipate a little bit more downside. Then we'll see if we get a big bounce down off an inverse head and shoulders. It depends on what Jerome Powell announces. He's going to most likely be very ambiguous, as he typically is, so keep that in mind. We'll see just to be safe. When it comes to NQ, okay, NQ also has kind of like an inverse head and shoulders like structure. We have a potential left shoulder here. Sorry, not like a perfect inverse head and shoulders, maybe like a slanted inverse head and shoulders. I want to kind of clarify that. So like this is like your left shoulder, right? This is like your head. And then this could be like a right shoulder. If we hold support, though, we need to see this reclaim 20,000. If we get back above 20,000, this could bounce right back up, just like that if Jerome Powell causes the bounce. If Jerome Powell causes a rug pull and we don't get that bounce, look for 19,500. If that fails us, we could be dumping back down below 19,000. So be careful for a big dump. For Bitcoin, we're trying to make higher lows. I need to see this reclaim around 85,000 to really bounce. If we lose 80,000, we could dump back down towards these lows all over against like 77,000. Could go either way. We have this pattern where we're holding support. We bounce, and reject. In this case, we bounce, and we're starting to reject here. So it could be leading to more downside. We'll see just to be safe, though. You never know. It depends on the big guy. Nvda could go either way. We're watching to see, is this an inverse head and shoulders or are we about to reject? If we bounce near this like 111 area. So if we start dipping to like 111, this imbalance fills and we get a big bounce, it's possible for a big V-shaped recovery for a rally back up to about 126 plus. If we lose 111, if 115 fails us and 111 does not hold, we could be looking for a dip back down towards 105. So it could go either way. So watch to see if that ends up being the case. For Tesla is once again forming a double top. If that's the case, we could be dipping more. We're looking for essentially 233 as our potential target, so we'll see what kind of reaction we get. Overall, as we're making lower highs here, we're not looking too great. Like I said, we might try to retest this, but then, because we're losing this wedge right here, this does favor 215 a little bit more in all honesty. No promises, though. It depends on Jerome Powell. If he gives us the rug pull, expect 215. If we reject off 230, if we don't hold 230, expect 215. If we get back above 241, we could try to go for 250. It all depends on what the big guy says. So keep those levels in mind and be very unbiased for FOMC for tomorrow. For Aapl is trying to make higher lows here. I need to see us reclaim 215 to bounce. If we lose 212, we could be dumping back down towards these lows, so be very, very careful. For Netflix, we're trying to hold support. We're barely at support here at this trend line. If we hold this trend line, we could see Netflix attempt to get back up to about 942, start pushing for 1,000 at the very least. If we don't hold support and we start dumping here, we could be dipping back down towards the 900 area, so be very, very careful. We have a double bottom on MSTR. We need to get back above 304 to bounce. And if we end up losing 272, we could be dumping to fill this gap towards 266. So it could go either way. So we'll see how things end up going. So watch that very closely. And I want to be very, very patient nonetheless. This could be forming a flag, but it really could go either way. So I'm going to be very patient on this. For Celsius, we look a little bit more bullish. We're favoring a move back up to about 31.5. We'll see if we form an accumulation. So give this some time. For Supermicro, We're also looking quite decent, at least thus far. Keep in mind that Supermicro has been dipping quite a bit. However, the problem is that we're still at the support. So, with this uptrend that's being established, we need to bounce here. We got to get a bounce and get back above 42 to bounce to really see this thing push back up. If not, if we lose support at 37, we could be dipping back down towards 35 pretty easily. So it depends on if we end up holding support and bounce or not. For Palantir, we have a potential inverse head and shoulders here. If we manage to break above 85, we're looking for an attempt to get back up towards 90. And if we end up losing support right here around this area, if we can't hold 82.5, we could be dipping back down towards 80 as well. So could go either way. If 82.5 fails us, we're looking for 80. If we break past 85, we're looking for a move back up to 90. So just keep that in mind. For Rivian, we're forming a nice double bottom, so we'll just have to see how things end up going. If 11.22 holds, we're looking for an attempt to get back up to 11.6. If we end up losing 11.01, we could be dumping, so we'll just have to see if we form a double bottom. So give this the time it needs as we form a nice accumulation. For SoFi, we have an inverse head and shoulders now. If we manage to break past 12.5, we're looking for an attempt to get back up towards 13. If we end up dumping, we could be looking for a move back down to about 11.4. So we'll just have to see how it goes. With this inverse head and shoulders, I want to see us get back above 12.5, but we'll just have to see just to be safe. So far, I think we're doing a good job, so keep that in mind. AMD is also forming a double bottom. It depends. If we dip like this tomorrow, we retest our 50 EMA around 101, get a bounce, and I'm looking for an attempt to get back up to 108. However, it's also possible we don't hold above this white trend line. This is our previous resistance, and we reject, just continue to dump back down to fill this gap for 98. Could go either way. It depends on 101. If we lose 101, we're bearish. If we hold it, we could bounce. So we'll see about that. For ARM, we're trying to form another accumulation right here. I want to see us get back above 123.8. If that breaks, we're looking for an attempt for the gap fill for 125. If we end up losing 118, we're looking for a dump back down to about 114. So we have a double bottom, inverse head and shoulders here. If we manage to break resistance, this is going to be trying to get back up to about 122. And we'll see how things end up going here. We'll see if 115 holds or not, but this is what I'm essentially eyeing. Hold 118, we're looking for a bounce. Lose 115, we're looking bearish to fill that gap towards 112 or below. It all depends on the levels. For others out there, such as, whoops, give me 1 second, guys. Sorry about that. For Coinbase, I'm not too happy about this because we have kind of like an inverse cup and handle, not looking too good. A cup and a handle rejecting off our 20. If we end up losing 175, I'm looking for a bigger dump again. It's looking pretty weak right now. Not a very, very good sign. And by the way, we need to see this reclaim at least 186 to bounce. Otherwise, we look bearish. For Amazon, we're making lower highs, so we're kind of rejecting, forming like a double top. This could be dumping back down towards 190 or below. If we end up reclaiming 195.8, we could be looking for a big bounce. Otherwise, we're just looking bearish, and it's going to be dumping back down towards 190. For Meta, we're making lower highs here. I think that this is looking relatively weak with the FTC announcing a big lawsuit. So this could start dumping back down towards 572. For Microsoft, we're also making lower highs as well. If we end up breaking 385, we're looking for a bounce for 388. But then if we reject here, we could be dipping back down to about 380. So we'll just have to see how it goes. For Google, we're making lower highs right here. This could be dipping back down to about the 160 area. Does not look too good as we're showing some weakness. For GameStop, 23.5 is our resistance. If this breaks, we're looking for essentially 24. If we end up losing 23.08, we could be dipping, so give this some time. AMC has a potential to break past 3.04 to try to bounce. It depends. DJT is very flat right now. It needs to break past 20.24 to bounce. Otherwise, it's looking kind of weak. The VIX is in a critical place. I think it's going to be pushing a bit towards this resistance. 22.6 is the main level. If we break that, this is a bearish sign for the market as we have a falling wedge. This could cause a big rug pull. If it's the opposite, if the VIX ends up getting a big rejection of 22.6, this could continue to fall, and that could be once again a bullish signal for the markets. So it depends on if this falling wedge ends up playing out or not. We'll see about that just to be safe, so just keep that in mind. That's going to be key for tomorrow. The 10-year is going to be reacting to what the Fed ends up announcing about the interest rate projections. Remember, we want to see these drop so that the government's interest drops as well. That's what the government's after. That's what Trump's administration is after. So keep that in mind. And then the The dollar index is also looking kind of weak here, so just keep that in mind. Anyways, that is it for my video, guys. I thank you all so much for listening, so please have a good rest of your day. As far as Tesla's going, we're looking weak. We have a double top leg structure, and we are not doing the best of jobs right now at holding up. But whether or not we get a big bounce or not is going to ultimately depend on FOMC. So get ready for the big guy, Jerome Powell, tomorrow. Keep in mind there's a schedule at 2 p.m. That's when we have all the data coming out. And then at 2:30 p.m., that's when Jerome Powell speaks at the press conference. So get ready, guys. Do what you have to do, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Get ready for FOMC. I appreciate you guys so much for listening. So have a good one, and peace out.